It's just about putting one foot in front of the other. And it doesn't matter how bad things feel. If you can just take that very first step, you'll be so surprised where that leads to, and another step and another step and another step. And there's only one thing that you should not do when it comes to mental health, and that's nothing. Just do something. Take that first step.
Welcome to the Optimized Workplace. I'm your host, Fran Dean Bishop. Today, we're joined by Nick Bracks, an author and founder of Move Your Mind Wellness Software. Our topic today is mental health and resiliency and what happens when life goes wrong. So, Nick, welcome to the show. And can you please tell us what you believe are some of the telltale signs of a mental health breakdown?
Yeah, well, great to be here. Thank you for making the time to have me on. A mental health breakdown, yeah, it's complicated, but I think that some of the telltale signs are when someone is behaving out of character for an extended period of time. So I think, we all have bad days. We all might have periods of time where we're struggling and maybe our behavior's off. But if you're seeing someone behaving out of character ongoing and it's not changing, I think that would be a really big telltale sign. So extreme behaviors, changes in behavior, and things like that. And it's why it's so important that, we have these conversations, we raise awareness about it, because people, don't feel often like it's okay to talk about it in the workplace, especially. You might feel like, if I talk to someone in management about what I'm going through, are they going to see me as not being as competent at my job, and will that affect my job security? So, it's a very complicated thing.
That's 1,000%. And I do want to dial into that. But before we dial into the corporate component, I'd love to have you tell our guests just a little bit more about you, because I think your story is just so very intriguing, and how you actually were able to rebound, parlay that into so many magnificent things in your life. Tell us a little bit about that, because I know that you have a nuanced story with your background and your family.
Yes, so I'll try and give you the very abbreviated version, because it's quite a long story. But essentially, I fell into the mental health space. I grew up with my father being the Premier of Victoria, which, for anyone in the US listening, that's the equivalent of being the governor of California or governor of, of New York. So our family was very known, and I had my own issues with anxiety, depression, overthinking, compulsive sort of, thinking. And that manifested in extreme behaviors, overtraining. I wanted to be an athlete. That was the only time I felt like I could be myself. And I would train, for 6-7 hours a day as a 12-year-old. And it had a whole lot of adverse effects. It stunted my growth, eventually got injured. I didn't develop. I was incredibly shy. And when I finished up at high school, my body had broken down, couldn't compete in sport anymore. I felt like a shell of a person. I didn't know what my identity was, because I was only referred to as, the son of this person. I was trying to escape that. Mm-hmm. And I ended up going through about a 4-year period where my life went off the rails. I discovered alcohol for the first time, started abusing alcohol, using it to cope. I would be drinking until I'd black out, multiple times per week. I was in more life-threatening situations than I can recount. And if I look back, I honestly feel like I'm really lucky that I actually survived the whole thing. It climaxed with a car crash where I had been out drinking. My best friend, who I'd grown up with, had come home with me and a few other friends. Me and the best friend got in the car, and I was, not thinking clearly. Was driving along a main road, went to turn, hit a traffic island, and the car just span out of control, got crushed in half. And luckily, we both survived, but it became, the biggest news story in the country, and something, that was really difficult to deal with. And eventually, over a long period of time after that, I gradually, saw a therapist, got back into university, had to overcome a fear of public speaking, got into a modeling career, got asked to go on Dancing with the Stars, which was, the scariest thing I could have imagined doing. But I went and did it because it put me so far out of my comfort zone that it just broke me out of that mentality, got me out of my head, showed me that I could do things that I thought I couldn't do. And that led to a path of actually a career in, public speaking, raising awareness about mental health, an acting career, and an entrepreneurship career. So things that I actually would have never, ever in my wildest dreams imagined going down, because I felt like I was the opposite of that. I was too shy to do it. But really, the biggest thing I learned through all of that was that we all have to start somewhere. It's just about putting one foot in front of the other. And it doesn't matter how bad things feel. If you can just take that very first step, you'll be so surprised where that leads to, and another step and another step and another step. And, the main message I've said the whole time for 15 years is there's only one thing that, you should not do when it comes to mental health. And that's nothing, just do something, take that first step. So that's a quick version.
Yeah, I really appreciate you being so honest and candid and sharing your world. I mean, I'm sure, your parents or your father being a public figure in Australia, that you were already there, but you don't have to keep recounting that. But I love the fact that not only are you recounting that and sharing that in your messaging and in the work that you do, but you're willing to share the vulnerable pieces of it, because I think that's where the healing can begin. So thank you for sharing that. I'd love to dig into something though, because this is not typically a topic we delve into a lot on the Optimized Workplace, and that is being a youth, being a child, or supporting children around some of the breakdown and the challenges. And that it's similar in the sense of what you mentioned, is that you do have to figure out where you ask for help. But I'm so curious, having been a young person going through this and now still championing this, so you're still involved with the work, you're still involved with the industry, you're seeing people, you're understanding and navigating that still as an adult. I'm so curious, what do you think are some of the reasons why it's so difficult to ask for support in the workplace and also as a young person? What do you think some of those, what are the barriers into asking for support, and why people stay in the dark so long when it comes to their mental health?
I think it's in general, it's a societal issue where we've been conditioned that way. Our parents have not been taught how to understand emotions, how to have these conversations. So
Mm.
they're passing on their same learnings to their children in school. It's changing a little bit, but in general, we're still not taught that in school. So the conversation's not there. We're not raised in a way
Yeah.
to have those conversations, to understand it. So if our own parents and our teachers aren't passing that on to us, then it's going to be very hard for us to then have that mindset. So it's this cyclical societal thing.
Yep.
And I think as well, being a man, and for men, it's even another level where it again is changing the conversation, but it's still there where men feel like it's weak to talk about their emotions, and they feel like their friends might judge them. Often their friends do judge them if they show that vulnerability. It's a long way to go. And, I'm not saying it's all negative. There have been huge changes, and in schools, in workplaces, it's changing. But, I think it's a big issue that, we have to really change these societal things, which is hard to do.
Absolutely. No, I totally agree with you. I think there's a lot of societal norms. I'm so glad that you were willing to talk about that. I think there's so many stigmas around it, and it's just passed on. It's generational, right? It's passed on culturally, generationally, and we've got to unearth that. I was reading or watching something. I digest a lot of information, as I'm sure you do as well, being in the health and wellness profession. I was reading something the other day about how uh, software organizations and technology is really starting to change that a little bit. If there are indicators that people can tap into, making or alerting someone else that they're going through a breakdown or going through a challenge. I have to go back and figure out what paper that was.
Yeah.
It was really interesting that that's starting to shift things a little bit. So let's kind of shift and pivot and talk about that a little bit, because I'd love to hear a little bit more about your software work and the work that you're doing with corporations. And, are there 2 or 3 nuggets that you could share from the perspective of, how organizations actually take steps to support or even combat mental health in the workplace?
Yeah, definitely. So I guess that from the work I'm doing, Move Your Mind is my brand, and really it's been from public speaking to podcasting to my book. The work in corporate, we're developing a software platform called Mind, and essentially that's a marketplace where you can book experts across nutritionists, therapists, fitness experts, etc. You can also you get content on there, so you can learn bite-sized bits of information across all areas. With Move Your Mind, the core thing that I'm doing is actually offering fitness programs to help with mental health, because that's been the thing that helped me the most. So I do a lot of that in corporate. What I've seen in corporate is there is a lot of effort to change the conversation, to improve these environments. But what happens more times than not is they'll make a push. They might get someone like me to come and do a talk. They might do a new initiative, but then it only goes so far. So people sort of get excited. Okay, great. Like let's change this.
Yep.
And then a week later, or not even a week later that day,
Yeah.
and it's no one's fault because like it's such a busy environment. There's so much pressure that they think, well, great, I would love to make time to exercise every day and do all these different things, but
Yes.
I've got all these work demands. So that comes first. And it's like what I was saying with that societal thing. A company's really like a microcosm of society. So to change that takes such a big push, and it takes everyone being on board to do it. So it's a really difficult thing. So really what I'm focusing on is creating solutions that, like the software platform, like what I'm doing with the Move Your Mind, fitness programs, things that can be applicable to anyone, anytime, anywhere, that is really simple to use. But it's an ongoing challenge.
If you are enjoying this segment or any of the segments that you've heard thus far on the Optimized Workplace, please be sure to join us here below and just follow us on the Optimized Workplace. We really want to not only drive our viewers and listeners, but we also want to share it. So if there's others that like us, please here, join and listen, subscribe on a regular basis, but also share the podcast. We'd love to have you back. So are there 2 or 3 things that you would say, if, we have a multitude of individuals that listen to the Optimized Workplace. So some are CEOs, some are talent managers, some HR, some business owners. Maybe you have a small company, but you're a business owner. But if you're listening right now, are there 2 or 3 things that you would recommend they could do to start to make the step towards addressing mental health in their workplace?
Yeah, definitely. I would say really like not looking for just a band-aid solution. So I think a lot of the time what companies are doing to appease shareholders, to do the right thing, is trying to tick that box. Okay, let's get a mental health program. Let's get someone in to talk. Let's, do that, which is great that they're thinking that way and taking that step. But I would say go one level further. So really look at and do some research and talk to people properly and look at the results and look at what it actually takes to make these changes and educate yourselves. I think the biggest thing is leadership need to actually understand that. I do a lot of training in that area where I'll go and do, consulting and workshops with leaders to try and educate them, because how can they then manage their employees and teach this stuff to them and make sure that that culture is changing if they don't have the information themselves? So I'd say really diving into that and taking a responsibility and looking at it that, you might have to take one step back to go 3 steps forward, because if you get this stuff right, it actually will improve, the culture in your company. It'll improve the bottom line of the company. You'll have less turnover. You'll have, you'll be able to retain more employees. So there's so many benefits. I'd say really go and look at, what is it that it takes to make that change, because there's so many, good, bad, indifferent solutions out there. So it's really critical that, you go to that level to look at that.
Yeah, I think what I'm hearing most from you is that you've got to put that oxygen mask on self first. We talk about that a lot here at Optimized Workplace, that it's so important. Like you really have to investigate, what are the challenges I'm dealing with as a leader in my organization, and how's that showing up for me? And then multiply that, right? And figure out ways in which you can assess that, survey that, get the data, understand what the initial challenges are. And I love what you were saying about, don't do a one-off. That's one of the things. I've been doing this for about 30 years. Hopefully I don't look like it, but I have been, right?
You look great. Yeah.
I hate the one-off approach because it gets people excited. As you said, it gets people all, they're dumping all of their personal information and how they feel, what their challenges are, and they're sharing that with you as a leader and as an organization through a survey or assessment or an engagement exchange, and then nothing is done with it. That is one of the most off-putting things. And I tell leaders like all the time, do nothing besides assessing and acting like you're going to do something, and then it gets nowhere, because that sends such a bad message, and it really doesn't help and empower people at all. So I love the fact that you touched on that. I think that's so crucially important. So tell us a little bit more about where you're heading next. I mean, Move Your Mind, I think, is such a wonderful concept. It sounds like it's some physiological, right? It's some physical aspects of it. There's also probably mental activities and things like that you're helping your clients with. But are there any other activities or anything that you're super excited about in 2024 that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Yeah, I mean, move your mind in general. I've talked about sort of what that does. So it's really just expanding that. I've been in the process of expanding from Australia to the US. I moved here a couple of years ago. So, continuing that and really trying to make a difference in this part of the world. And outside of that, the other part of my career, I've been in the entertainment world and I've been developing a TV series. So it's actually
Ah,
centered around mental health. So the core of it is it's a dark comedy, and it has a lot of mental health themes in it. And I originally based it on my own life, and it's become its own world. And we're trying to get that. That's getting pitched to different networks at the moment. So
oh, that's
that's
exciting.
sort of happening in the background. Yeah,
That's exciting. Well, I think whatever it takes to bring light to it and to get people to talk about it, the more we talk about it, the more light that's shed on it, the more we engage with it, the more it becomes less of a stigma and less of something far off that people can't touch and feel and more real, right? So I love the fact that
exactly.
you're thinking about doing that and parlaying the entertainment celebrity world. Use those contacts, right? Use those contacts that you've got going on. So tell us a little bit. I'm so curious. If you're listening to the Optimized Workplace, you got to go over to YouTube and watch this episode because Nick has some really interesting pieces on his wall. I'm a big art fanatic, and I do believe very much in the aesthetic of your workplace, workspace, and just your lived environment and how that can inspire your health or
Yeah.
detract from it. So you have a very interesting piece on your wall that I would like you to tell us about. It looks like something from Australia. Am I correct?
You're correct. So yes, it's a didgeridoo from Australia. So I actually was looking for my girlfriend was helping me. We were in a thrift shop about 2 months ago and looking for different things, and I saw a didgeridoo and I thought I've got to put that on my wall because
Oh,
it's very Indigenous Australian iconic instrument, and it reminds me of home, and I sort of love having that there because I do miss Australia being living over here.
I bet you do. New
Yeah.
York is nice, but it's not Australia.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Well, I love it because you have all the qualities in your space that I can see right there that we talk a lot about on the optimized workplace, right? So if you're looking for ways to enhance your workspace, your work life, and bring essence into that, you've got the little tree there. I see. So you got some biophilia and nature working. You've got the beautiful brick aesthetic wall, but then you also have different versions of who you are. So he's got some portraits up there and some New York up there and the didgeridoo. So I think that's fabulous.
I
So I
appreciate
have
it.
so enjoyed this conversation, Nick. Before we let you go, one of the things I'm really asking my guests this year is, besides taking care of the world and your environment and your community and whoever else you're serving in your business, how are you actually showcasing self-care to take care of yourself this year? Any tips you'd like to share?
I mean, I think it's such a good way to finish because, like we said with the oxygen mask, it's like it is the most critical, and we really can't, do anything positive in the world if we don't do that. So for me, there are a number of things. I mean, the biggest thing I've always done is exercise, so that's like something that keeps me grounded. But I'm trying to get better sleep, more regular sleep. I'm trying to find more balance in my life. I mean, I'm sure you would know, being an entrepreneur, doing my own ventures, it's 24/7. So I don't switch off enough. So I'm trying to really create a better routine where I can have quality, downtime, quality time with friends, with my girlfriend, with, doing things that aren't to do with work. That's probably the biggest one.
Yes.
Trying to find that balance in my life and yeah, just try. And then outside of that, just trying to really grow my skills in business, in my entertainment career, working on things that I haven't traditionally been as good at. That's the other part.
Ah, I love that. Well, you left out dancing, and to be on Dancing with the Stars, I know you had to dance. I love dancing, and I love that show. I'm so curious, what episode were you on?
So this was in Australia, so you probably wouldn't have seen it. So
Oh,
it's
okay.
quite a big show in Australia as well. So this was in 2011. Uh,
Ah,
so I made it for, I think I stayed on for 7 out of the 10 episodes.
okay.
Definitely was not good at dancing. I'm pretty rigid. I've got two left feet. I don't dance anymore. So I had that experience. I enjoyed it, but what I learned is I'm not good at dancing, but I gave it a go. I went out of
Well,
my comfort zone.
I'm going to put you on the spot, but I think anybody that can make it through at least the first elimination does well. So, were you the first to be eliminated?
I made it to week 7, so I was probably down to the last 5 people. So there was
Oh,
a lot that got eliminated before me.
yeah. So enough of this self-deprecation.
Well,
You can
what
dance. You
what
can't
we
make it
did,
that far and not dance. I'm sorry, but you can't
well,
make it that far and not dance.
at that time I was actually modeling, doing underwear modeling, was in good shape. So what me and
Oh,
my dance partner did was we ripped the top off on one of them early on, and that got the votes coming in. So
you did one of the Justin Timberlake and Janet Jackson moves, huh? Now all of my
exactly.
guests are going to run over to YouTube and see what the heck you look like. They're like, "Who is this guy?"
Yeah. I think that got me a few extra votes.
I love it. I love it. Well, much success to you. I love Move Your Mind. If we can ever be of support to you in terms of what you're doing, by all means, all of your information will be in the show notes. So if you're interested in learning more about Nick Bracks and the work that he's doing with Move Your Mind, his book, as well as his software, please feel free to visit. And thank you all again for being with us on the Optimized Workplace. I'm your host, Fran Dean Bishop. And remember, as I always tell you, it's many and that small, monumental moments that make the biggest difference in your day. Have a great day, everyone. Take care.